It's the episode we've been waiting for.
Oh,
The Division of Champions. The NFC South.
truly the ACC of the NFL. Literally.
Actually, we shouldn't be making fun of the NFC South because they do have a Super Bowl champion more recently than we do.
I know.
So,
well, we're the one we call the tradition.
Yeah. Hey, we were playing football in the 40s.
We were playing when guys were. My dad always talks about how his favorite era of the NFL. Now, my dad, for anybody who doesn't know, is from our own, so he likes football, but he's not wild about it. But he always says his favorite era of football was the 20s because lads were plowing fields and then going out and killing each other on the field.
Yeah.
The same field they plowed.
If you think about it, like the last time the Bears had a great quarterback, like they didn't call it baseball, they played baseball. Playing stickball on the alley. Yeah. It's like you watch the old tapes of
Hey, she.
they're all talking like way too fast and like way too loud. Good times. But going into the NFC South, Tampa Bay won it last year. A very ugly division.
The last 2 years, it's been ugly.
And Tampa Bay's won it both years, with it being as ugly as it was. But to their credit,
Tampa Bay is 500 in the last 2 years, and they have 2 division titles.
3 straight division titles.
3 straight,
yeah, because they won it in 2021, where they were really good, and then they won the Super Bowl in 2020. So Tampa's been pretty dominant.
They're on a run. They've been in the playoffs 4 straight years.
Yeah, and they've been a very consistently well-run team.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I think I'll say this: like there's a football blogger I really respect. I follow him. He's a really good X's and O's guy. Everybody knows Brett Coleman, right? I remember him. Yes, he has no idea who we are, but I really enjoy his stuff. Like he's a really good football blogger. Like does awesome stuff, like all 22s and whatnot. But he had a tweet, and it made me remember, like, because the Caleb Williams sweepstakes like started in the summer of 23, or really after the draft in 2023, and he had like some tweet that was like, I guess when the Buccaneers signed Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay, come on down for Caleb Williams. Like that was kind of, and like he was just joking, of course, but there was a feeling, and he was not the only person. I just remember that tweet specifically, and I agreed with him. I was like, this team was in a huge transition, and it made sense that Tampa Bay was going to tank for Caleb Williams. It just made a lot of sense. And Mike Evans was in the final year of his contract. The defense was kind of aging a little bit. Devin White was on the last year of his deal. I want to say who's the guy that signed with Detroit? Not Winfield. They signed Winfield back. I am blanking now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the corner, Murphy Bunting, I think.
Sean Murphy Bunting.
Yeah.
Did he go to Detroit?
One of them did. One of their corners. But they had a lot of transition, is my point, on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line over the years has had guys retire. And then, of course, the big one, Tom Brady retired. But Baker Mayfield outperformed expectations drastically. And Baker Mayfield's career has been one of the crazier stories because he's on his 4th team?
Third team in the last year, technically. Year and a half.
So, because everybody knows he started with Cleveland.
Should we just start with the Bucs?
Yeah, we are. I guess we should start with the Bucs.
Yeah,
because we're already on them, kind of. But with Baker, it was a good start to his career in Cleveland. Won a playoff game in 2020. Then it all kind of like fell apart in 21, 2022. His stint in Carolina, he gets traded because Deshaun Watson signs that huge contract with Cleveland, so they cast him aside in favor of Watson. He goes to Carolina and is downright awful.
Yeah.
Like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I think they cut him. He was that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And like he goes to LA with the Rams and
On a short week.
And a lot of people just, I think, are going to forget about this stint of his career. But like that changed. I think that like revived him because he was good for the Rams. He won some games like Christmas
He's
Day.
always been great with the chip on his shoulder.
Yeah. And like I think he just got in the right system and got the right coaching. And he was pretty productive. And then last year with Dave Canales, like Dave Canales got a lot out of him. So I think the question this year is, can Baker, he's never been able to do this, is string together 2 full consecutive seasons of good play. Because in 2018, his rookie season, he was awesome. 2019, not awesome. 2020, he was really good. 2021, horrible, right? So we've never seen a pattern of success for 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that happening, or do you see like regression coming for Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay this year?
Well, the funny thing with Baker Mayfield is what a lot of people thought he was, what made him so good, quote unquote, in Cleveland was a dominant running game.
Yeah.
And that was the Bucs haven't had a good running game since Mike Allstott and Cadillac Williams were playing for the Bucs.
Doug Martin for a
Doug
year.
Martin, yeah, Doug Martin, yeah, he had a good year. But the last couple of years, they've been downright terrible at running the ball. They haven't been able to find a running back. And now I know Leonard Fournette had a great playoff run, but they didn't run the ball well in the regular season in 2020 or 2021. And he did it without it. Anyways, it didn't bother him at all. He had a great season regardless.
Yeah. He was 13th in adjusted air yards or adjusted yards per attempt last year, 5th in the NFL in just air yards per attempt. So he was throwing the ball downfield, 9th in EPA. He was 16th in QBR. So like he wasn't Patrick Mahomes out there, right?
No.
But he was serviceable, and I think the roster is pretty good. I think Jason Light's put together, even with the kind of the turnover they've had with a lot of veterans, I think they've replaced them with capable rookies. I think Todd Bowles can coach up a defense with the best of them.
Yeah.
I think what Todd Bowles missed in his career with the Jets is just a quarterback that didn't screw it up. And that's Baker Mayfield last year. He didn't screw it up. I think he got the ball to the playmakers that he needed to. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Rashad White's actually pretty good in the passing game. Just not that effective as a runner in between the tackles. And I think it shows in a lot of their production. But yeah, I think the season, and this sounds so cliche to say, but I think this season is going to be defined by Baker Mayfield. Can he put together that second straight season? Because this division, it's not great. Like no. I think Atlanta might be interesting with Kirk Cousins, but I still have questions about that. He's coming off an Achilles injury. We'll get to Atlanta in a second, but do you think Tampa should still be the favorite by default in this division? That's where I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because I don't know. Baker is just as much of a question mark to me as Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta with the injury.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see now how that passing game works without Dave Canales. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they pick up right where they left off. It certainly helps to have the weapons that they do.
Yeah.
But defenses might play them differently this year. They might play another year of tape with Larry Foote as their defensive coordinator, or one of their defensive coordinators.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy when you see guys that especially I was talking in the last episode when you read through the magazine. I love looking at the assistant coaches, and I'm like, oh, that guy's a quality control coach now. I remember him playing
Yeah.
in the league for 10 years.
And Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator, was actually with Baker in LA. He was the offensive coordinator.
He was the guy we were just talking about in the last episode. He was. Why am I blanking on the Titans right now?
Shanahan, or not Shanahan, Callahan.
The quarterback. Why am I blanking so bad?
Will Levis.
Will Levis. He was Will Levis's college coach, and he was kind of what made Will Levis so sought after when he was coming in. Well, as sought after as he was coming in.
Yeah, he was Will Levis's coach for a season in 21,
and that was his best season.
Yeah, and then in 22 he went to the Rams, and even though that was a forgettable year for the Rams, the story of the 2022 Rams was actually Baker Mayfield, kind of the reclamation project. And they put a beating on some teams at the end of the season. Like they killed the Broncos on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And that's I agree with you. I think the concern is like, Canales leaving. What does that do with Baker and the progress that he made? But at least they were able to get the guy that was with him where the whole process started, because that's the key to everything. Is if we get 2019 or 2021 Baker Mayfield, this team wins 7 games this year.
Yeah.
I think if this team gets the Baker Mayfield of last year, they win 10. Like I think that's right where they are. Now, Super Bowl, NFC aspirations, I don't see that. I don't see this team getting that far. I think if there's one team that maybe has Super Bowl aspirations out of this division, I don't see any of them personally, but I think Atlanta has the highest end outcome of any of the teams.
Couple plane crashes and the Falcons might be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't see that as an outcome for the Buccaneers, but I think they might be I think they should probably still be tied for the favorite to win the South. And a lot of that kind of is a contingent, I guess, bet on what you think of the Atlanta Falcons, who I guess they technically finished 3rd last year, but I want to talk about them next.
Yeah.
So this team has, I think, the most to gain of any of the teams in the NFC South. I think they have a coaching upgrade pretty much across the board, right? They kept Jimmy Lake, who, a defensive coordinator, this team actually was really good last season, especially on the defensive line side of things. I think the Falcons are excuse me, I mixed him up. He was with the Rams last season, but he was pretty good with Raheem Morris. And I think if there's one thing that the Falcons can improve on, it's stopping the run. But overall, Zach Robinson's a huge upgrade over what they had at OC. And I think the biggest upgrade in coaching that the Falcons have is with Raheem Morris over Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith, I think, was right up there with Brandon Staley on like game mismanagement. And his wasn't necessarily like situational. It was like asset mismanagement. Like he was the type of coach that, why get the ball to Bijan Robinson when we could get the ball to Tyler Algier?
Yeah.
Like he was like, why get the ball to Drake London when we could get the ball to Kadarrell Hodge? Like he did so many questionable things on offense. And then the biggest upgrade is Kirk Cousins over Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
Desmond Ridder was, is this safe to say he was the worst quarterback in football last year? Him or Zach Wilson, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty damn close between either one of them.
If you watch those, and of course, Joe Barry made Desmond Ridder like have his career game. So that was awesome. Like 4th quarter comeback. I saw it live, but
it was just weird how much they quit on the season. Like towards the end, like, they were in a playoff position. Yeah. They had a chance to win the division after Christmas Eve, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And then the game against New Orleans was embarrassing.
The game against the Bears the week before was embarrassing. Yeah. They got ran off the field by the Bears.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, to be fair, the Bears were a lot better at the end of the
yeah,
season.
they were a lot better at the end of the season. But yeah, it was. I mean, there was no firing Arthur Smith was the most obvious move any team could have made at the end of last year.
I agree, and I think that the only thing I think this is a drastic improvement. The one frustrating thing about this Falcons team isn't really like what I expect them to do this season. I think I fully expect them to compete for the NFC South, assuming Kirk Cousins is healthy. What I don't like is what they did in the offseason when they had the chance to do what they did with their head coaching moves and with their first round pick.
Yeah.
I liked Michael Penix coming out, but I didn't like him in the role that they now have him in, which he's just kind of a lame duck, like backup quarterback for the next 3 seasons. I don't like that for him. He's 25 years old already, so is he really going to be the starting quarterback at 28? Is that going to be his first year as a starter? I think that was really dumb.
Yeah.
And as much as I think Raheem Morris is a really good defensive coordinator, and I'm sure he's going to be a fine head coach, you had Bill Belichick right there, and you could have had him, and you didn't take him.
I don't know if we'll ever figure out what transpired in those 2 meetings. I would love for Bill one day to maybe share that, but
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever come to find out the details behind that. But as much as I don't like those moves, and I would criticize their offseason, I think on paper this team has the most to gain from those improvements that they did make, even though they weren't even the most optimal. They're still this team should go from 7 to I could see this team getting up to 11 wins.
Yeah, I think that's where they'll end up around.
They are so talented. They have players pretty much all over their roster. I think the only thing that scares me a little bit is I don't love their front. Grady Jarrett, I think, is coming off an injury, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I remember talking about this during the draft.
And they didn't stop the run that great.
Yeah.
But I do like the staff that they bring in. Maybe they're a little bit more creative. But the thing that drives Atlanta is the amount of weapons they have. And with London, with Bijan Robinson, with Kyle Pitts. I think
Darnell Mooney is going to have a good season with them.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
Yeah. And Mooney does kind of what you need somebody to complement London and Pitts, because like London and Pitts can just eat up the intermediate part of the fields because they're such big targets, but they're not like deep threats. Like you don't really want Drake London running a go route. That's not his game. Like Drake London's going to be, you want him running to the sidelines, contested catches, like playing over the middle, because he's hard to tackle, but number 2, no one's going to beat him for the ball. But you don't want him running 30 yards. It's like that happened with what they were doing last year. But Bijan Robinson to me is like the X factor of the offseason or of the Falcons season, because I think he could make a lot of explosive plays on the ground. The biggest question is Kirk Cousins going to be ready to start? And I have a question for you scenario wise, because this is a bigger picture scenario. I thought a lot about this one as somebody that drafted Michael Penix in a dynasty rookie draft. Let's say Kirk Cousins does not. No, different league. I had a bunch of second round picks, and I got a loaded team in that league. So drafted Bo Nix and Michael Penix in the second round just to have more quarterbacks. You can never have enough in Superflex.
Right.
But this isn't fantasy, so we're not. But let's say Kirk Cousins is not ready to start the season, which is realistic.
Yeah.
He tore his Achilles in October last year. That's usually like an 11, 12-month injury, right?
Yeah.
So if he's not ready to go week 1, who's the starter? Michael Penix, right?
No, Taylor Heineke.
They could go that direction. And they may, just because of politics, because they would want to avoid the scenario I'm about to bring up. Let's say that Michael Penix is the starter, and Penix goes out week 1. Who are they playing week 1? Do you have their schedule in front of you?
I can get it here in a second. They play Pittsburgh.
Okay. Good defense. So, but let's say like they get Pittsburgh at home and he goes scorched earth. 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Does what he did at Washington, basically. Just Atlanta's killing it against a good defense to open the season. And they're at home. Mercedes-Benz Stadium or whatever the hell. The Georgia Dome's going crazy. If that happens, do you bench him to go back to Kirk Cousins? They're playing with fire here because they paid Kirk Cousins all that money.
Paid him $1 trillion.
But if you have a rookie quarterback that lights it up in his first game, and you spent the 8th overall pick on him, and I'm sure like he's probably
are they hoping for that? Do you think?
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Like you don't want him to suck.
You don't want him to suck.
You want Kirk Cousins to be healthy so you could follow the timeline that you set. But I think like that. I think that's a possible scenario because like Michael Penix isn't the type of rookie. Like he either is good or he's not. There's not going to be a developmental period for Penix.
No,
right? He's like 25 already.
Yeah.
He's either good or he's not. So if I'm the Falcons, it's like I kind of want to see it play out because if he sucks, okay, we have Kirk Cousins. It all worked out. We took our shot. We missed, right? But if he hits, my question is, how do you go back to Cousins in that situation? Like, imagine if Mahomes did what he did week 1 of 2018, but move it up to 17 because Alex Smith had like, let's say COVID happened before that or whatever. Like he had to miss week 1. And then Mahomes goes out and throws like 4 touchdowns. Does Andy Reid go back to Alex Smith after Patrick Mahomes shows what he has? No.
I just keep coming back to the whole financial in my head. That's what I keep thinking about.
But ultimately, like
that's a lot of money to eat, even if you want to go with
yeah.
Like even if you're like, oh, we'll trade him then. Well, now you have a bunch of dead money. If you think like we're gonna try to compete with Michael Penix, well, you're paying. You have a lot of money allocated to a guy that's not on your roster. Who's not.
Yep. I totally get that argument, but the guy that's going to have to make that decision is Arthur Blank.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, Arthur Blank had to have green lighted the decision to draft Penix in the first place.
Yeah.
So like.
No, he did not actually. I don't think he did because there was that. I think it was similar to like when the Bears drafted Trubisky and John Fox didn't know about it, even though this is a little bit different of a situation.
I feel like the owner has to like.
Well, do you remember like the clip after they drafted him, and was Arthur Blank? Was he talking to Terry Fontenot or was he talking to? I think he was talking to Terry Fontenot. And he was the only guy in the room not clapping at the time. Like it was almost like he was trying to say, like, what was your thinking there?
Are we sure about that? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, and this might not play out. If Kirk Cousins is cleared by training camp, then it is what it is.
He could certainly be a pup-less candidate. I could see.
Yeah, but this could be a political disaster. But from a football standpoint, if you're just looking at it solely from a football standpoint, it's a beautiful problem to have.
It's a great problem to have from a football standpoint. Yeah.
Like a part of me as a football fan wants this to happen.
Oh, it'd be hilarious.
Just because like it'll become business versus football. Like from a football perspective, it's an obvious decision. We're going to let the young guy play. Because we want to see what we have. We know what Kirk Cousins is at this point. But like at the same time, like Michael Penix could also come out and just suck, and then we know what we have in Michael Penix, then we're going back to Cousins. And then I don't think Terry Fontenot wants that scenario to play out. But I think it's totally plausible because
the situation he's put himself in.
Yeah. Like it's not a guarantee that Kirk Cousins is ready to go week 1. And I also think it's an equally big disaster if you start Taylor Heineke over Michael Penix in that situation. Because then people are going to be like, this dude's not even good enough to supplant Taylor Heineke in camp.
Yeah.
And this isn't the Jordan Love situation. That's a stupid comparison because number one, Love was not ready to play as a rookie. Number two, Love was like 21 years old when he got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different thing. Penix was like a college star for 3 years. So, I think this is going to be a really interesting team to follow. They're one of my like main. I do not think this is a Super Bowl team. I will say that.
No,
but I think this is the one of the top 5 most intriguing teams, and I would say the number 1 most intriguing team that is not going to win a Super Bowl. I will say that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the Falcons?
No, my mind is in a pretzel now, just thinking about that possibility. It's a great hypothetical when you think about it. It could play out.
Every time I've had like that discussion with other people, like, and I know a couple Falcons fans, and they're just like, they kind of do this, like, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, yeah, guys aren't ready to come off Achilles injuries that quickly. Like, are we sure?
Especially when they're 38 years old.
Yeah, I think Cousins is like 35, 36.
35, yeah.
Yeah. Rodgers is and that's something we didn't cover in the Jets episode. It's like, are we 100% sure Rodgers will be ready to play week 1?
Yeah.
Because minicamp's one thing. Playing in the NFL, like in live snaps, that's a completely separate. And Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles 8 weeks after Rodgers did. So, anyway, next team on the list and this team is like, we talked about like intriguing teams. I think this team is like the least interesting team.
Oh, I know.
And it's been like this for a while. You have the least interesting quarterback in the league with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
This team they just won't give it up. It's so frustrating.
They will not tear the Band-Aid off.
Just let it go. You're not going to win the Super Bowl with this roster. Like, I love Cam Jordan. I think he's a great player. He's going to have to win a ring somewhere else, right? He's going to have to go to the Chiefs and get 5 sacks in the regular season and then get a strip sack in the AFC Championship game.
They are, yes, they are loyal to a default. And
I respect that in a way. But like from a long-term standpoint, you're just making it worse.
And if you're a fan of the team, like you hate treading water like this. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, and the Bulls have treaded water the last 5 years, actually longer than that. And finally now they're starting to talk about, well, they traded DeMar DeRozan the other night. They're trying to trade Zach LaVine. Like they traded Alex Caruso. They're at the point now where they're like, okay, there's no point in living in the play-in world. We might as well try to tank. You know, like what good? And honestly, it doesn't take that long in the NFL. Like the Bears in 2022, they had $80 million. And they had more money in dead cap than they had on their offense in total that was playing. It sucks. It's a hard year, but really the money resets itself very quickly if you just tear it off.
And I'll say this, like, I'm not even an advocate for tanking per se, but like, I'm not an advocate for just mediocrity. And that's what this team has been dating back really ever since Drew Brees retired.
Yeah.
For 2021, they had Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill basically splitting. To be fair to Sean Payton a little bit, I think that team might have had some better success if Jameis Winston had stayed healthy throughout the entire season, because they were putting together some momentum. And then you had the famous meme of him in the locker room with the crutches. That was like one of my favorite Jameis Winston moments of all time. But like the last 2 seasons under Dennis Allen, and I think Dennis Allen's actually a pretty good coach. And like, this is an indictment on him. This is an indictment on the approach. It's like, you're not going anywhere if you're signing Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr is a road to nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like I hate Derek Carr. Like he could be the nicest guy in the world. He is not and has never been even a top 15 quarterback. He is the definition. Like I'm trying to think of another sport that we can compare this to. Like he is in the NBA. Who's this type of team that like is always I guess you mentioned the Bulls earlier, but the Bulls are actually been horrible at times too.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, it's like the 10th when you're the 10th seed in the West. It does you no good. I remember when the Hornets. So I'll get my team. The Hornets like kept trying to go with Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker was the Derek Carr.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The NFL.
Actually.
He put up good stats, but like ultimately, you're never gonna win like 55 games.
Yeah, you're not going to get out of the first round.
You're never going to get out of the first round. Like, I would rather the Hornets go. I was an advocate. Let's trade Kemba. Let's get whatever we can. Let's tank and get freaking Zion Williamson or get John Morant or somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I know those two have had their own issues. But, like, at least you can reset everything there. And you're not going anywhere with Kemba. You're not going anywhere with Derek Carr.
No.
You're stuck on a road to nowhere. This team, what's so frustrating is the win total. I could see this team winning 7 to 9 games. I could see them having a winning record. Hell, they may even sneak in to a 7 seed.
Yeah.
What good does that actually do you? That does you no good. Like this team getting a 7 seed is not like the Packers last year getting a 7 seed.
No, gosh, no.
Where they had a young team that was up and coming. This team is aging. They're getting worse.
Especially with how easy the Saints schedule is. Like them getting a 7 seed with that schedule and then meeting a 2 seed, whether it be Green Bay or Detroit or San Francisco, and getting absolutely throttled in the wild. Like what? That's not fun for anybody.
Yeah. And I guess in fairness to the Saints, we could technically say the same thing about the Bucs. But the thing is, like, last year, Baker Mayfield, like, cost them nothing to invest in.
And the Bucs won a playoff game.
The Bucs don't feel like pretenders like this team does.
Yeah.
This team, what the Saints feel like to me is when they get to play a bad team, like when they played Carolina last year, they'll run over them. They won't have any problem.
But they ran up to score against Atlanta, remember?
They don't beat good teams. They just don't. And this team, I don't see any improvement anywhere on the roster. Dennis Allen's like a fine coach, but he feels very Dick Duran-esque.
Yeah, that's
Doug Marrone-esque. Like those kind of coaches.
These analogies right now.
Yeah. So it is the most uninspiring roster and team in the league. And it's frustrating. If I were a Saints fan, I'd be so mad. It's like, especially with the quarterback talent that we just had in last year's draft. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I would rather be a Broncos fan with that situation. Yeah. The roster's way worse, but at least you feel like they got the coach and they're taking a shot on quarterback. Well, it could totally blow up.
It's great when you feel like you can see the road in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, like even if the road is a long and maybe bumpy road, at least you know it's there.
Yeah.
With the Saints, it's like they're driving through a tunnel and they don't have the headlights on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy. And like,
Christ, we could like, is that Bill Shakespeare over there?
Hey, I got Colin Cowherd calling us right now. We're ready for his show. Because Doug Gottlieb is now a college basketball coach. So, by the way, this is the most
JJ Redick. He is the podcast and the head coach of the Lakers.
No, did he keep his podcast?
I didn't hear that he was going to end it. I'm sure he will have to.
Doug Gottlieb is keeping his radio show and coaching Wisconsin Green Bay basketball. Like, what? So, like, you're going to be on the recruiting trail, like at junior colleges and high schools around the country, like trying to get guys to come play in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And
But
then
like,
when
hey,
you're going to talk about it on the podcast.
no, what he's going to do is like, hold up, I can't meet with you because I got to talk about Bronny and LeBron. Because that's literally what they talk about on these national shows. It's so stupid. But anyway, we are awesome with the analogies today.
Yeah, we're talking a lot of basketball tonight.
Yeah. Because basketball is the ultimate analogy sport. Because
Yes.
it's not actually that fun to watch. So
No.
we have to think of like analogies and like personal vendettas to like to keep us going. But anyway, with the Saints, I just rip the Band-Aid off. Just let it go.
Yeah.
But I almost think they might have missed their window to rip the Band-Aid off. And this team is going to be like in just mediocre in perpetuity, I guess. I guess if you really want to go for like a religious angle or a religious analogy, they're going to be in purgatory. They're just going to be mid forever. And that sucks for the Saints. Last team, and this team
might be the best team in football.
Yeah. I want to start with a positive. It can't get worse.
Like, no, I don't. And they're going to field the team this year, so that's a positive.
It cannot. They're going to field the team, and it can't get worse. And I have another positive. We were just talking about coaching upgrades, right? Where we went from Arthur Smith to Raheem Morris. Before the show, we were actually talking about the Chargers, just off topic, but or off air, we were talking about the Chargers and going from Brandon Staley to Jim Harbaugh and how that was a huge upgrade. I think Canales is a huge upgrade over Frank Reich. And
you steal him from a division rival.
Yep. So I remember watching the Panthers in preseason last year. And Michael Lombardi, who I listen to his podcast a lot, he had a criticism of Frank Reich that I thought was actually spot on. And because Michael Lombardi, I can criticize him for other things, but I do think when it comes to coaching, he gets a lot of takes right. Frank Reich, historically, just like those teams they're never ready to play at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And it showed, especially like what he did with Bryce Young last year, getting him ready to play in the NFL. It was like downright malpractice, like what that team looked like. The offensive line was just horrible. They couldn't get protections right.
In the first preseason game, didn't he get sacked 4 times in the first quarter or something like that?
Yeah, and it's like, once he's getting hit like that, take him out. Like, it doesn't matter. Just like, don't let him get hit and get scarred. Because the thing that I get mad about is Bryce Young, everybody's given up on him already. They forget how good he was in college. Dude won the Heisman Trophy in 21. He was really good in 22. Didn't beat out Caleb that year for the Heisman, but basically Bryce Young was one of the most productive, accurate, played in good timing. He was pretty mobile. Like he showed a lot of athleticism. Yeah, he's small, but he had talent, and it showed. I don't know if he was worth the number 1 pick over Stroud, but I think he was definitely in the conversation. And it's funny now, everyone craps on him. But I think last year, the worst coaching job in the NFL by far were the Carolina Panthers. Mm-hmm. So I will say the coaching with Dave Canales, who has on his resume the 2 most recent reclamation projects in Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, because he was with Seattle prior to Tampa.
Yeah.
If there's anybody that can turn this around for Bryce Young and get him playing back to where we thought he would be 2 years ago, it's going to be Canales. That's some positive spin. With that being said, the roster is awful. Like it is rough. I think the season there ain't a lot to look forward to on a win-loss record. I'll just say that. I think this team is probably destined for anywhere between 3 to 6 wins.
Yeah.
6 probably being generous. The season is all about Bryce Young getting his confidence back.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. This team it's not to be full sunk cost fallacy on this, but at this point you gave up so much to get him. When you traded up with Chicago, you have to make it work. And we know Bryce Young has the talent. We saw it in college. That's what the entire thing's about. And I think that's the approach that they've had. So in terms of offseason, they added Robert Hunt, Deontay Johnson. They drafted Xavier Legette, Jonathan Brooks. So they've addressed the skill positions and the offensive line vastly. And they've kind of recouped some of that lost draft capital from the trade. But they got a long way to go. But like I said, I mean, I wouldn't judge this season on winning games. I would judge it on, can Bryce Young kind of get out of bust territory, essentially.
Yeah. No, they are a far away from competing. And even with the guys that they brought in, a lot of teams, bad teams, when coming off a bad year and free agency starts, they open the checkbook big time. They give a lot of money to guards, which is not really
not usually a good practice.
Yeah, not a great practice. And sometimes I think that when they see anybody that's better than what they had, and what they had was awful, that they immediately think, oh, that's a big upgrade for us. And it'll be an upgrade. But in terms of resource allocation, it wasn't great. Now, I know that trying to get anybody to join the Carolina Panthers in March would have been very difficult.
I agree with that in the sense that, but the problem is for them, they didn't have the draft capital.
Yes, they had no choice in a way.
They the only pool they could go to for talent was to go to free agency for a Robert Hunt type.
That's
player.
True. Yeah.
Thanks Chicago.
Thanks that bastard Ryan Poles. What was he thinking? He ruined the entire Charlotte economy.
This team sucks. Plain and
simple. At least they had the Hurricanes in Charlotte.
However, if you're like I said, if you're looking for a positive spin, I'll give it to you. Dave Canales, like I said, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith. We've seen 2 reclamation projects. Like, if there's anybody with a track record that can get a quarterback back on track, he's shown that he has the capabilities of doing that. They have added offensive talent in the draft. And even though you hate guards in free agency, they did that. I still believe in Bryce Young as a quarterback. I might be the only one left. I haven't given up on him yet.
He's got to. I mean, it's not just he.
Yeah.
The rest of the team, of course, has to help, but it's got to look different this year.
It's a team sport. But I mean, like, a great example is just like some of the route combinations that these teams would run, like that Frank Reich and their team ran last year. Like, there were receivers running in the same area. There was like no spacing. They were asking Bryce Young to like make plays that were never there, right? But the other thing is, you could tell his confidence was affected by the end of the season. Like, he wasn't making the throws either. If you want a little bit of hope, or hopium, I guess. If you want hope in drug form, I guess. watch the Packers game in the second half. I think he found a little bit of rhythm.
That game scared me.
Yeah,
that was when the Bears needed Carolina just continue losing to get the first pick of the draft. And I remember I have at the time, I have a 10-month-old son now, but at the time he was 3 months old. Yeah. And we were going to Christmas Eve Mass. And so I was like, all right, well, he's taking a nap. I can take a shower, and then I'll get him ready, get him in his Christmas gear for Mass. And Green Bay's up 30-13. I think this game's over.
Yeah, and then they tied.
And then I came back out after getting him dressed, and we were late for mass because I had to watch the rest of the game because I was like, I dear God, how did Green Bay let this game get this close?
2 words. Joe Barry.
Joe Barry. Oh.
Yeah, he was, and that's the caveat if you're buying into that hopium. So like, you get high from the crystal meth, but like you forget that there's, like, hey, you're getting high on the crystal meth. I've been watching Breaking Bad, so that's why I said crystal meth. But like, you're getting high on the meth, and then you realize like, oh, well, this is full of stuff that's going to kill me.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you're coming back down from your high. Coming back down is realizing, wait, he only tore it up against Joe Barry's defense.
Do you remember that last drive, like when Anders Carlson finally, like when he hit the game-winning field goal? I was like, "Go back, go!" And you were just despondent because it should never have been in that. You were like, I was the happiest I ever was that Green Bay won a game, and you were like, I don't even know what to say about these guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, like offensively, I was fine. Like, I mean, that's the hope on the Packers side of things. Offensively, we're always, second half of the season, super happy about them. It's the damn defense couldn't figure it out. But going back to the Panthers, like I said, I'll give them credit for this. Is at least they have a direction. Like they're more exciting than the Saints.
Yeah.
And the Saints have a lot better of a roster on paper.
Would you rather be a Panthers fan or a Saints fan?
I'd say Panthers because there is that 10% outcome where Canales gets Bryce Young fixed.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like that could happen. Like they do
have a great defense.
They have a good defense. And the other thing is like their running game was so poor last season with Miles Sanders and
Chuba Hubbard,
and their O-line was really bad. But they've invested. They got to get more out of Ike Ekwonu, the first round pick from a few years ago. They got to get more out of him at left tackle. Like you said, defensively, this team like can keep games relatively close. I mean, it's just getting this offense to play like in any sort of rhythm. I think that's what they got to get back. And it's almost like Bryce Young kind of reminds me of like Markelle Fultz in a way. We are doing so many basketball analogies.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, wait, isn't he a basketball player? And
Markelle Fultz is, I guess it's not a good comp you want to hear if you're a Panthers fan because Markelle Fultz is, I think, I'd say he's mostly a bust, right? But it's because he lost his shot. Like in shooting in basketball, last time I checked, was pretty important. Like, having the confidence and the rhythm to knock down a shot. It's like imagine if Tiger Woods forgot how to swing a golf club.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bryce Young, it's like he forgot how to play in rhythm, but I saw him freaking do it for like 3 years at Alabama. Like I saw him do it against SEC defenses. Watch him play against Georgia in 21 in the SEC title game. Special talent. I think I see the talent there. But what I watched last year, I didn't see it at all. And if I'm a Panther fan, I want to be buying into that was just Frank Reich and a poor team around him, and that Dave Canales can get what Nick Saban and his staff got out of him at Alabama. Which Bryce Young are we getting? And that's really all that matters about the season. The rest of it, the defense might be good. Who cares? I would tear down the defense and sell them all for draft picks to get
I would
future
too.
picks. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You got to make the Bryce Young thing work because if that doesn't work, you're going to win 4 games a season anyway. Like
it's academic.
Yeah, it doesn't. So that's all you got to fix.
Do you think Jonathan Mingo will not be the worst wide receiver in football next year? He was awful.
I mean, I've had debates with Panthers fans because they're local, right? and I'm rooting for Xavier Legette. But that's the kind of drafting that's gotten the Panthers where they are.
Yeah.
Where they take these big-bodied receivers that do nothing in college. And like sometimes just predicting, like just looking at production profiles for wide receivers are all you have to do. Like AJ Brown, good in college, good in the pros. Justin Jefferson, good in college, good in the pros, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard. Jonathan Mingo did nothing at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Not going to do crap in the pros. It's not that difficult. And Xavier Legette kind of fell into that same area where it was like, really talented, but like had 1 year of production. It was like his 5th year at South Carolina. And you're like, why did it take him 5 years to break out? I don't love that. I hated that they traded up for him. It's like this team should not be trading up into the first round. You should be trading down for more picks.
I remember during the draft that I was like, I could see Carolina trading up, and you were like, that would be so asinine. And then they ended up doing it anyways.
Yeah, they technically did. They traded up 1 pick.
1 pick, yeah.
Which is dumb. Just let Buffalo make the call, like on who they wanted. They were going to take Coleman anyway. Like you gave up.
Wait 20 hours, and he's yours.
Yeah, and like I think part of the reason they've been, I think Tepper's run them into the ground. They make really horrible decisions. I don't know why Dan Morgan is the GM. This team needed like a house cleaning, but the thing, like it's a sunk cost. Like you poured so much into this infrastructure with the quarterback.
That's why it's so hard to see that like organizations like that just don't figure it out all of a sudden.
Yeah. Like I said, the only thing I believe in, like I believe in Canales. I think he's a good coach. And I believe that Bryce Young has talent. If my only hope is that this is a situation kind of like who's another dysfunctional team that like still can win games, like
the Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
And that's pretty bleak, honestly. If you're Carolina, like, oh,
and you're
maybe
hoping
we
to
can
be
be
the
like
Bears.
Yeah, that's not great. But so NFC South
robbed us. Hey, maybe we can be like those guys one day.
Yeah, maybe we'll rob somebody. But let's go through our predictions before we finish up. So I guess I think this one will have probably the most variety. Because I could see any of the first 3 teams.
Yeah,
I could see any of the first, because I don't think this division's all that good.
No.
So where do you kind of see it?
I have Atlanta. We've said that Atlanta could get to 11 wins. I actually think this is assuming without that hypothetical we brought up earlier, that Cousins is able to play the whole season, and he's similar to the Kirk Cousins that we know. I have them winning 11 games. I have Tampa in second place, winning 9 games. The Saints going 8-9. And Carolina ups their win total by 50% this year.
So that they'll go from 2 wins to 3 wins?
Yes.
That's so depressing to think about. All right, I'll give you a range.
Up your win total by 50%. That's usually a pretty good year.
I'll give you a range. I haven't looked at schedules. I'm not a big schedule guy. I'll go with Atlanta winning the division. I think Tampa finally loses the NFC South. I think Atlanta, I would give them anywhere between 9 to 11 wins. I do not see Super Bowl, and I think divisional round is probably the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
In second place, I'm going to go with the Saints.
Playing his first home playoff game, that would be, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, he did play with the Vikings 2 years ago.
Second place, I'm going with the Saints at 8-9.
And he did play one with the Redskins. I forgot about that one too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, against us, actually. It was in 2015, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, first place, I'm going Atlanta, 9 to 11 wins.
Okay.
In second, going the Saints at 8 to 9 wins. Basically what the Saints have been for the last 4 years. I think the Bucs are going to be a disappointing team. Just something about them. I don't like the way they run the ball. I think they have an aging defense.
Yeah.
I'm still not sold that Baker Mayfield's going to string together those back-to-back seasons. We haven't seen it yet, and he's a veteran in the league now. I think Dave Canales is a big loss that people are underestimating. I have them going anywhere between 7 to 9 wins. So I think them and the Saints I would like kind of lump together. But the Saints, I just love that they find a way to get to 9 and 8. Like they just do it. Like they're gonna miss the playoffs, but damn it, they're the Steelers of the NFC.
Yeah, they're becoming them now.
Yeah. And last place I got Carolina. So I think you and me are kind of on the same page.
All right.
I have Carolina between 3 to 6. 3 is, I think, kind of what most people would probably predict them as, where they're a team that is a disaster. Bryce Young would be a bust if they win 3 games. Like, I think we would declare him that after 2 years. 6 wins if Canales can get Young improved. They can string together some drives and score some points. But they still have so much of a talent deficiency on the offensive side of the ball, especially. But even defensively, they lost players like Brian Burns. I
gave Derek Brown his money. Who knows if he's the same player?
I think, I don't see a high ceiling for them. I think 6 wins is probably a best case scenario. In no universe do I see, like, maybe 1 out of 100 scenarios do I see the Panthers like making the playoffs. Like, I would probably say like it's a 1% shot.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
They might be eliminated after week 1.
Who they play week 1?
The Saints, actually.
And see, the Saints will beat up on them. It's like, we're back.
Oh, the Saints are back. Derek Carr threw for 300 yards on 60 passes.
Yeah. Oh, and that's going to be the game where like the Saints actually struggle, but they still win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like
they get like a dumb score late, like Bryce throws the ball off somebody's helmet, and
we covered. We covered. We covered the 8-point line or whatever it was, but anyway, that's the NFC South. So we're halfway through now.
No, we got to be more than halfway. Oh no, we are halfway through.
Yeah, because we still have the North and the West.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So next week we'll have the AFC West is our next show. So,
stay tuned to hear us pick the Raiders to win the AFC West.
Actually, breaking news though, just to be completely serious, the Chiefs are probably going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, probably.